Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhara, Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. We continue reading from Srimad Bhagavatam. We are on Canto 3, Chapter 30, Text 14. So, Tatrapi ajata nirvedo briyamana swayam prate jarayopat vairupyo maranabhimukho krihe. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Swami Srila Prabhupada. The foolish family man does not become averse to family life, although he is maintained by those whom he once maintained. Deformed by the influence of old age, he prepares himself to meet ultimate death. Family attraction is so strong that even if one is neglected by family members in his old age, he cannot give up family affection and he remains at home just like a dog. So yesterday we were hearing what's the difference between a grihast and a grihamedi. We are all encouraged to become grihast, not remain a grihamedi. So a grihast is one who stays in the family, who does whatever is necessary, all the duties that are needed to be done for the satisfaction of the Supreme Lord Krishna. He works for pleasing the Supreme Lord. In the Vedic way of life, one has to give up family life when he's strong enough. It is advised that before getting too weak and being baffled in material activities, and before becoming diseased, one should give up family life and engage oneself completely in the service of the Lord for the remaining days of his life. So like retirement, we take up some service or some business, then at an appropriate age, when the material duties are finished, then we retire from active material life. Why? Because then the time in this body is limited. So the remaining days we can cultivate spiritual knowledge. Try to revive the love of God which is there in our heart. Therefore, it is enjoined in the Vedic scriptures that as soon as one passes 50 years of age, he must give up family life and live alone in the forest. So before people used to go to the forest. That's why it is called Vanaprasth. Vanaprasth means going towards the forest. But now, we are city people. We are born, brought up in the city. It's not possible for us to live in the forest. So we can be at home or travel to the places of pilgrimages or join the ISKCON temples, do service there, take up Krishna consciousness, hear, chant. The idea is dedicate more and more time for our own Krishna consciousness. After preparing himself fully, he should become a sannyasi to distribute the knowledge of spiritual life to each and every home. So the idea is that we understand the goal of life is to develop our love of God. And when we have understood it, then we need to preach it to others. Lord Caitanya says that Yare Dekha Tare Kaha Krishna Upadesh. That this knowledge is not that we need to just keep it with ourselves. No, everyone is part and parcel of Krishna. So everyone needs to know this knowledge. So here, of course, sannyas, the women don't take sannyas, but a man can take sannyas with the permission of his family. And it is recommended, okay, he's worked his whole life, then he should retire from active material life, cultivate spiritual life, get a taste for hearing and chanting, for doing spiritual activities, and then completely renounce and preach this knowledge to others for the benefit of everyone. So aste matyopanyastam grahapala ivaharan ama yave apraditatnir al aharo alpashestitaha. Thus he remains at home just like a pet dog and eats whatever is so negligently given to him. Afflicted with many illnesses such as dyspepsia and loss of appetite, he eats only very small morsels of food, and he becomes an invalid who cannot work anymore. Before meeting death, one is sure to become a diseased invalid. And when he is neglected by his family members, his life becomes less than a dog's because he's put into so many miserable conditions. So old age is really humiliating experience. Life humbles us. There's so many things which we are able to do when we are young and full of energy, but as old age approaches, then we become so dependent on others. The Vedic literatures therefore enjoin that before the arrival of such miserable conditions, one should leave home and die without the knowledge of his family members. If a man leaves home and dies without his family's knowing, that is considered to be a glorious death. So the idea is that the family members should in fact regret, oh, where is our loved one gone? He's gone. Where did he go? Why did he leave us and go? Like that, the attachment for the family members remains. But if one stays at home being uselessly without adding anything, then the family members are waiting for the member to die, which is a very miserable condition. But an attached family man wants his family members to carry him in a great procession even after his death. And although he will not be able to see how the procession goes, he still desires that his body be taken gorgeously in procession. Thus, he is happy without even knowing where he has to go when he leaves his body for the next life. So we are so give so much importance. Or when we die, then our body should go in a nice procession. So many people should come and glorify us. We should be given a nice funeral. But we are not bothered, oh, where am I actually going? All this is what's going to happen to the body. And we won't be able to even see what's happening to the body because we are already in another place. So instead of taking the trouble to find out, hey, I'm going to give up the body, where am I actually going to go? We start giving importance to these unimportant things, which is the body. But we ourselves, where we are going, that we are not bothered about. So that is the point for us to think, where am I going to go after I give up this body? That is the important point. Not that how many people are going to come to my funeral, how many people will say what to my funeral, how my body will be decorated. It doesn't matter. We are already left the body that time. It really does not matter to us at that point. So, is that okay? What we just read? This is like the bare truth. Bhagavatam is smashing all our illusions that we have, the gorgeous illusions and the gorgeous dreams which we build up. Bhagavatam is just giving us the bare truth. Vayunotkra matotaraha kafa samrudanadikaha kas swasa kritayasaha kante gura gurayate. In that disease condition, one's eyes bulge due to the pressure of air from within, and his glands become congested with mucus. He has difficulty breathing, and upon exhaling and inhaling, he produces a sound like gura gura, a rattling within the throat. So this is because there's so much mucus, so difficult to breathe. And the body is not functioning well, so it's a miserable condition. Shayanaha parishochadbihi parivitaha sabandhubihi vachyamano abhinabrute kalapasha vasham gataha In this way, he comes under the clutches of death and lies down, surrounded by lamenting friends and relatives. And although he wants to speak with them, he no longer can, because he is under the control of time. For formality's sake, when a man is lying on his deathbed, his relatives come to him and sometimes they cry very loudly, addressing the dying man, "Oh, my father, oh, my friend," or "Oh, my husband." In that pitiable condition, the dying man wants to speak with them and instruct them of his desires. But because he's fully under the control of time factor, death, he cannot express himself, and that causes him inconceivable pain. He is already in a painful condition because of disease, and his glands and throat are choked up with mucus. He's already in a very difficult position. And when he's addressed by his relatives in that way, his grief increases. So the point of death is not an easy moment. When we get fever, our body feels so weak and tired and we feel miserable. So at the time of death, the body temperature first rises. It's like unimaginable fever. It's like being bitten by millions of scorpions. So it's a very terrible condition. The soul is in a miserable condition, does not want to leave the body, but it's a very miserable condition, being pulled out of the body. And so in that situation, how will we be able to remember Krishna if we have not practiced during our life to remember Krishna? That's the reason we are advised that as soon as we get to hear about Krishna, we should take up the hearing and chanting process very seriously, because we don't know when death is going to come. And we fantasize that our death is going to be like a perfect death, but we don't know what kind of a death we will face. We really don't know. We may not be able to speak. We may become diseased, invalid, and at that moment, then how will we be able to remember Krishna? But if we have practiced chanting Krishna's names while we are alive, then Krishna will make arrangements for us to remember him at the time of death, so that we can go back home, back to Godhead. Evam kutumba bharane vyapratat majitendriyaha mriyate rudatam swanam uruvedana yastadihi. Thus the man who engaged with uncontrolled senses in maintaining a family dies in great grief, seeing his relatives crying. He dies most pathetically in great pain and without consciousness. And so that's why when we see a person who is suffering and then he's dying or he dies, then we say, oh, it's better, he was suffering. Like this, he's found mukti, he's got liberation. But that is just our mental speculation. We really don't know where he's going, He's going to go based on his karma and his desires. It's not that because if his desire is to continue in the material world, it's not that he's going to be getting liberation. We say rest in peace. There's never any rest in peace for the soul. We say, oh, it's good, he was suffering here. Yes, but we really don't. Of course, yeah, if you're really suffering so much, and if you can get a new body in a human form, that is what do you say, a good situation. But if we are going to get an animal form, then what good is that, Rather, at that time, if we somehow or the other are able to give Krishna consciousness, even at that moment, we can save that person. We can really save that person. So in Bhagavad Gita, it is said that at the time of death, one will be absorbed in the thoughts which he cultivated during his lifetime. So at the time of death, what are we going to be thinking of? We are going to be thinking of whatever that we are attached to thinking when we are living. It's a but natural situation. We are continuously used to thinking of something or someone or of some situation or some burning desire. Then at the time of death, naturally we will think of that. That's how the mind works. A person who had no other idea than to properly maintain his family members must have family affairs in his last thoughts. That is the natural sequence for a common man. The common man does not know the destiny of his life. He's simply busy in his flash of life, maintaining his family. So, we get so busy, so caught up in this life that we have, that we forget to think, where is my next destination? Where am I going to go after I leave this body? We don't ask that question because there are so many urgent things that need our attention that we are just busy. Our whole time and energy is focused to meet with those urgent demands. But the most important question we should ask, at one moment I have to give up this body, and where am I going to go? Where will I go after this? At the last stage, no one is satisfied with how he has improved the family economic condition. Everyone thinks that he could not provide sufficiently. Because of his deep family affection, he forgets his main duty of controlling the senses and improving his spiritual consciousness. So, we get so attached to our body, to our family, to our possessions, everything connected to the body, that we forget that we need to cultivate Krishna consciousness. We forget we have a higher purpose. We forget what is the goal of this human life. Sometimes a dying man entrusts the family affairs to either his son or some relative saying, I'm going, please look after the family. He does not know where he's going, but even at the time of death, he's anxious about how his family will be maintained. Because his whole life he has had this worry. He has no knowledge of Krishna or Krishna consciousness. So he's anxious about this. He does not know he's not worried where he's gonna go, but he's worrying how will this family be maintained. But as soon as we leave the body, we forget, then our attachment to this body, to the same family that we have given so much time and energy for is gone. Then we have attachment for our new body and our new family. It could be even a pig's family, as we were hearing in the story of Indra. Sometimes it is seen that a dying man requests the physician to increase his life at least for a few years, so that the family maintenance plan which he has begun can be completed. These are the material diseases of the conditioned soul. He completely forgets his real engagement to become Krishna conscious and is always serious about planning to maintain his family, although he changes family one after another. So one may say that, what is it then? Is Bhagavatam saying that don't take care of your family, don't maintain your family? No, Bhagavatam is saying you maintain your family, you take care of your family, understanding our relationship with God, that I am a part and parcel of God. My family members are part and parcel of God. My time in this body is temporary, and let me engage in devotional service so that I don't need to come back to the material world again, because this is not my permanent situation. So reading on. Yamadutau tada prapto bhimo sarabha shekshano sadrashtva trasta hridayaha Shakran Mutram Vimunchati. At death, he sees the messengers of the Lord of Death come before him, their eyes full of wrath, and in great fear he passes stool and urine. There are two kinds of transmigration of a living entity after passing away from the present body. One kind of transmigration is to go to the controller of sinful activities, who is known as Yamaraj, and the other is to go to the higher planets up to Vaikuntha. So it depends on what activities we have done. How have we lived our life? Based on that, either the Yamadutas will come to live, pick us up, to take us, or the Vishnu Dutas. Depends on what activities we have done, what is our desires. If we have done sinful activities, our desires are still materialistic, then we will go to Yamlok to face Yamaraj. The Yamadutas will come to take us. In the 6th canto, I think, of Bhagavatam, or 7th canto, the detailed description of the Yamadutas is given in the story of Ajamil. How the Yamadutas are so scary, We think, oh yeah, it's no big deal, but the Yamadutas are really very, very scary. And because of this fear, the dying man appears to be fearful, because they're really scary looking. At the time of death, here Lord Kapila describes how persons engaged in activities of sense gratification to maintain a family are treated by the messengers of Yamaraj called Yamadutas. At the time of death, the Yamadutas become the custodians of those persons who have strongly gratified their senses. They take charge of the dying man and take him to the planet where Yamaraj resides. The conditions there are described in the following verses. Okay, so we are going to hear about the conditions in the Yamlok. So, did anyone have any questions or comments till now what we are reading? No, then we'll continue reading. Yatana deha avrityapa shared bhagva gale balat nayato dirgham avadhanam advanam dandyam raja bata yatham. As a criminal is arrested for punishment by the constables of the state, a person engaged in criminal sense gratification is similarly arrested by the Yamadutas, who bind him by the neck with strong rope and cover his subtle body so that he may undergo severe punishment. So we have to understand, for the soul there is no death. We can never die. We cannot be cut to pieces. We cannot be burnt by fire. We cannot be withered by the wind. Nothing can happen to the soul. So now what's going to happen? How are we going to get the punishment that we are supposed to receive? It's with the subtle body. So the gross body we give up. The gross body that we can see, made of earth, water, air, fire, and then all the senses, eyes, nose, legs, all this body we give up. But we have the subtle body, which consists of mind, intelligence, and false ego. Until the time we are in this material world, this subtle body goes with us from one body to another body. Our mind, intelligence, and false ego, it goes with the soul from one body to another body. Every living entity is covered by a subtle and gross body. The subtle body is the covering of mind, ego, intelligence, and consciousness. It is said in the scriptures that the constables of Yamraj cover the subtle body of the culprit and take him to the abode of Yamaraj to be punished in a way that he is able to tolerate. He does not die from this punishment, because if he died, then who would suffer the punishment? It is not the business of the constables of Yamaraj to put one to death. In fact, it is not possible to kill a living entity because factually he is eternal. He simply has to suffer the consequences of his activities of sense gratification. So the soul cannot be killed, but we get the punishment for what we deserve. The process of punishment is explained in the Caitanya Caritamrta. Formerly, the king's men would take a criminal in a boat in the middle of the river. They would dunk him by grasping a bunch of his hair and thrusting him completely underwater. And when he was almost suffocated, the king's constables would take him out of the water and allow him to breathe for some time, and then they would again dunk him in the water to suffocate. This sort of punishment is inflicted upon the forgotten soul by Yamaraj, as will be described in the following verses. So we say, yes, oh good, this person left and they got liberated, they got mukti, they're resting in peace. We really don't know, what is the destination. Just because we can't see it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. But the scriptures they speak to, they're giving us this information of how the soul is dragged from the body if the Yamadutas come to take us. And then how the soul has to undergo the punishment. This is not all fiction. This is not fiction. And it's not that it's going to happen to only someone else. No, it's for each and every one of us, depending on how we act, So it's not to terrorize us, but just to inform us of the truth. That's the reason we have been given this information, so that we can rectify ourselves. Rectify. Hear and chant the names of God. So at least we can, at least we don't need to see the face of Yamadutas when we are leaving the body. At least we can get another human life so that we can perfect our love of God, completely revive our love of God, go back home, back to Godhead. Is that okay? So
Yes,
we'll
it's
stop
okay.
here for today.
Yeah,
Thank
okay.
you so much. Yes. Thank you for listening and enjoying it. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Shilpa Prabhupada ki jai, Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai, Hare Krishna.